Hockey, yeah.
My favorite.
It's Judd's Hockey Show.
And it's not just Judd's Hockey Show, it's the Wednesday extravaganza. The line is intact. Zolgad, Declan, Goff, Jessie Pierce, of course, Bar Down Beauties podcast as well. Check that out, and also covers the Wild for NHL.com. And we are here off of a very interesting, actually, back-to-back games. The Wild coming back in a game I want to talk about here and beating the Canucks on Monday after being behind by about 3 goals, 10-7, 7 goals in the third period. And then they lose in Winnipeg on Tuesday night. But guys, I want to go back to the Canucks game, okay? Just for sheer absurdity of a hockey game that I don't know that we're going to see again. It was reminiscent of the 80s. You don't see it now. But Jessie, what was your takeaway, and how long did it take you to absorb what we saw on Monday, which looked like a pretty decisive Canucks win, turning into, a game that had numerous records broken. The Wild's previous amount of goals, most goals in one game, was 8. They scored 10, including 2 into an empty net. How long did it take you to process what we saw in that afternoon tilt on Monday?
I think I'm still processing it, right? I mean, like you had mentioned, Judd, we're never going to see a game like that again. And largely in part because I've never seen so many 5-on-3 penalties be given to a team, which is how Minnesota put themselves in front, which is great that they capitalized on those opportunities. No, I legit blacked out. I had my story written, you guys, JT Miller with a hat trick, yada, yada, Vancouver, all that good stuff. And then that changed right after Minnesota makes it 5-3, right toward the end of the second period. And then they go on this run. Like, I had to go back and watch the recaps and just make sure I was getting the goal sequence right, because it happened so quickly and it was tremendous. And I I knew that Winnipeg game then was going to be hard to follow up on because the emotions were so high. 10 goals, 7 goals in a period, for crying out loud. I think 5 or 6 within the span of 6 minutes in that third period. It was just absolute insanity. A lot of fun to watch. I'm sure you knew this, Judd. Did you know that 2 teammates have not scored 6 points in a game together since Wayne Gretzky did it back in 1993? So Jules Eriksson, Kirill Kaprizov in good company there.
Absolutely. Dex, your thoughts on a crazy day?
Oh my God. As Jessie, complains that she had to rewrite her story, which we completely understand. We know how that is. You're watching ass kicking and you just think, actually from a sports writer perspective, that's always great because you can file the story. It's like the bare bones is already written, and then you have to control alt delete that SOB. It's a whole thing. I was asked here at our company if I wanted to work the company suite, because we need a liaison in the suite every time we have a suite for listener giveaways and stuff. And I said, Monday's a very busy day for me. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. And then our guy, AJ Fredrickson, got tasked with having to do it. And then AJ ends up watching one of the most entertaining, non-playoff hockey games in Minnesota history. So, yeah, an absolute bananas of a game, and probably dovetails into our other conversations and topics here. But I think it goes to show, can the Wild win games with the top line that is producing at a very ridiculous rate right now? Can they continue this hot stretch? That's what I'm kind of curious on. If this top line can kind of shoulder everything, can that help them get by with what they can do on offense?
And the answer is sometimes. It's sometimes. And look, that game was, as a fan, it was great fun. Like I'm watching that thing and my head is swimming. And I'm like, oh my God, this happens. And then that third period was absolutely crazy. But if I'm John Hines privately, I'm like, okay, there's some problems here. The goaltending, and this continued last night against the Jets, Jessie. The goaltending, very questionable to abysmal at times. You can't give up 7 goals. And then in the 6-3 loss to the Jets, yes, the Wild did play well. They had almost 40 shots, okay? Declan's question is answered because the Jets' top line is put up against the Kaprizov, Ek, Boldy line, and those guys went from, against the Canucks, Kaprizov, 3 goals, 3 assists, 6 points, +2. Eriksson Ek, same exact line, 3, 3, 6, +2. And Boldy, 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points, +1. Unbelievable night, okay? The Jets, who are good defensively, said, okay, throw that at us, and here's what we got. Kaprizov, power play goal, an assist, a -2. Eriksson Ek, no goals, a power play assist, A-2, and Boldy, nothing, a -3. And he also started to think he was, again, Gretzkyan and turned the puck over, including to the empty net goal. So, Jesse, I think Declan's question was answered, which is, if you're going to put that much firepower on a line, you are going to at times thrive. But in like the playoffs, you're probably going to get a line that's going to do nothing but focus on trying to stop you. And that's where you need more depth scoring.
It's a double-edged sword because without that line going, you have absolutely no shot in HE double hockey sticks to do anything, right? You can't even talk about playoffs if you don't have your Kaprizov, your Ek, and your Boldy going right now. We've talked about Marcus Johansson needing to figure something out there because you're right. That second line is not even producing. Matt Zuccarello was only on the score sheet via power play during that Vancouver game, right? And it's great that power play is clicking, that first unit in particular. But yeah, you need to add some more scoring depth. And I don't think Minnesota has that, unfortunately. That's kind of why when we go back to those discussions of lines, when we talked about, well, maybe Jules should stay back because he adds a little bit of depth, or maybe you have Boldy not put up on that front. But personally, right now, I think if you want a shot to make the playoffs, you need to load up that front line and just hope that they get the good matchup. Hope you get your home matchup, win that home ice game with that. But yeah, I don't know, because there's not many other offensive players. You look at that roster, not many of those guys are going to scare an opposing defense.
Do you think if they get, though, and this is a tall ask at this point with the state of the goaltending, if they get league average goaltending, if they get just consistent goaltending, can this team carry on the same way they're doing with that top line and with league average goaltending? Does that give you hope in a playoff series? Do you still feel the same about this team? Is it just not sustainable at all? I guess everyone's kind of, again, riding the high because the Wild have played well. Even though they lost yesterday, they've played well lately, and maybe they can still sneak into the playoffs, but they're clearly built so much differently than they were these last 3 playoff runs that I don't know if they can just ride a top line and get average goaltending and see if they can, make some magic in the playoffs. Like the last 3 teams that have made the playoffs, the Wild, are leaps and bounds better than this team still.
You can't. I mean, you look at the potential of who Minnesota might face. They have anything but average goaltending on the other end, whether that be a Winnipeg, whether that be Dallas, whether that be even Colorado, whose goaltending is probably the worst amongst all of that, but has proven to be well. Yeah, I mean, the inconsistency in goaltending. You guys, I've been so good all year long about not criticizing the goaltending. And I'm done. Jesse. I'm done. It finally burst out of me today. The biggest problem is the inconsistency you're seeing in Philip Gustafsson, which was a big concern coming in. But you're looking back at those goals that he allowed. The reason he got pulled after the second 2 periods, he was fighting it bad. They were softies that he just wasn't prepared. It's almost like he wasn't paying attention. There's one where Zach Bogosian gets beat, and I think you have Philip Gustafsson looking at him saying, oh, well, Bogo's got it. Well, he don't got it, so JT Miller just kind of saunters in and pots it very easily with Gustafsson so far back in the net. And that's happened time and time again. Again, I think the defense, yes, shares some liability there and some accountability, but Philip Gustafsson has not followed up on the year he had last year to me yet, right? Not to the extent that he needs to. Because then the problem is you have Marc-Andre Fleury who comes in, who is, for lack of a better word, old, as I like to say. But not only that, he wasn't expected to have this many games under his belt. He wasn't expected to be a starter. It wasn't going to be a 50-50 split. That was something I think that Marc-Andre Fleury was looking forward to, something that Philip Gustafsson was ready to shoulder. And certainly injuries aside, it's been a really weak tandem this year, and it's concerning. It's concerning moving forward because right now is the time of year where you need your goaltending to be hot. You need your goaltending to be able to save you these games, and frankly the goaltending itself hasn't done that in too many instances this year, whether that be Fleury or Gus. There haven't been too many goalie wins per se, and so certainly it helps when your offense is going because the puck is down in the other end, and that's great and that's fine and well, because right now the goalies, it's a big old question mark.
And look, here's the thing too. The last 2 games, the Wild's played 2 really good teams. They haven't played that well. Like the Canucks, you could literally going into the 3rd period, I kid you not, Dex, on Monday, they were up against the ropes and up by 2. And you could feel them. And I was talking to someone in the press box, and I said, they got to put Fleury in, and if they do, it feels like they could come back. Now, not 7 goals. Don't get me wrong. I didn't see that. But the Canucks felt like they were vulnerable for sure. The Jets, I didn't think played great last night at all. But here's your problem. Last 2 games combined, 12 goals on 53 shots. That's a 774 save percentage. And I know some of them are tough, okay? But the ones that stand out to me are just, you're exactly right. The JT Miller goal that went over Gus's shoulder cannot go in. I don't care if the defenseman's beat or not. The second goal last night in Winnipeg that Fleury said he didn't see, which I think came 14 seconds after their first goal, cannot go in. Like not if you're going to make the playoffs. So yeah, I mean, it's fun to watch when the Wild is skating and certainly the threat of a line is there. But I mean, I think that this is all for naught. I think that this is a nothing burger unless your goaltending improves in a huge way. And I just don't know that I see that. I don't know that the consistency. And the other thing that gets me is when Gus starts to go bad now, it goes really bad. Mm-hmm. That Coyotes game, he was coming back from being hurt, you guys, but that went bad and he was it was like over. And the Canucks game, same way. So like we could talk about this and that and a run for the playoffs, blah, blah, blah. But I don't see how you have any hope of a sustained success rate when your goaltending is this leaky and consistently just not good.
I mean, Philip Gustafson, 3.27 goals against average, and then you've got 2.96 for Marc-Andre Fleury, right? I mean, it's just absolutely unacceptable. And again, I still do maintain a lot of that liability is on a very weak blue line. Outside of Brock Faber, I'm just not impressed with the defense this year. I haven't been all year, and yes, injuries included, but it's just there's no confidence. And it's kind of interesting because I would be curious to pay more attention to this because admittedly I haven't yet. How different the defense plays in front of Gus and versus Fleury, right? Because I do feel obviously there is that transcendence, there's that difference there because I think in front of Fleury, for whatever reason, they go a little bit harder. And it's not necessarily because they think that they don't trust him back there, but there's just a difference of opinion. Granted, both goalies play a very different style. But I think that's something to look at too, is why, again, an inconsistency. That is the theme of the year, is inconsistency, which is probably the worst description of a squad for a season is inconsistent because there's just nothing. It's hard to pinpoint one specific thing when there's 100 different things wrong and 100 different things right in every different game.
Well, I guess what does that mean for their trade deadline plans though? Because I mean, a month ago we were saying sell off everything you can that you're able to trade, and then I don't know who it was. I think it was Frank Cervelli of Daily Faceoff who had the note that maybe the Wild end up not trading Marc-Andre Fleury because they're playing so well. Now, the goaltending is still a problem despite the Wild playing so well. So I guess what do? Do you just steer clear of making any additions? Do you make a goaltending swap and get another backup Slappy that can kind of maybe stabilize things? The Wild have had a long history of acquiring goaltenders at the deadline that actually end up helping them. But I guess I don't know if you can really find another goalie here, and you're not really in position to be like shelling out a future asset. You shouldn't be, in a position to shell out a legitimate asset to bring in a goaltender here. I just don't think that's going to be worth it for them.
Well, and beyond that, you have teams that probably were needing a goalie a week or two ago that aren't as much anymore. Edmonton, I don't think, is probably in the chase anymore. They seem to be doing just fine with the goaltending that they have, right? I mean, so you have certain teams that I think might be pulling back. I think there's probably still enough chatter, but also I look at Marc-Andre Fleury and his desire has probably got to drop a smidge as of late as well.
That's probably true. On a different subject, back to the forward lines. And he scored twice last night and played well. Does anyone have any idea why Marco Rossi was demoted to a bottom 6 role? Like of all of the things I watched on Monday, of all the things I watched, I didn't see one where I thought, 23 deserves a demotion. Do we have any theory? And I watched at least what Bally showed for John Hines postgame, and I didn't see an explanation. Do we know why Hartman was put up on that pseudo second line? Ryan Carter called the Rossi line the third line. At first, I thought it was the fourth line, but just to be safe here, it's a bottom 6.
Yes. It's funny when you slid into my DMs with that question last night. I was like, oh, here.
Let's be very clear. That's all I slid in your DMs with. I don't want to upset.
That's true.
I don't upset Dawn.
But like I had mentioned to you then, and the only thing I can think of is it was to feed the propaganda of the Ryan Hartman, drama maybe. And like,
in
maybe there
Winnipeg?
was, yeah, you know what I mean? I don't, because otherwise it makes zero sense. Also, the other possibly obvious explanation would be he was trying anything to get going. I mean, Minnesota fell behind pretty quickly during that game, right? So I think that's when you make those in-game decisions and you're trying to changing things on the fly. Because he did eventually go back, right? I mean, that didn't stick around for too many
The Rossi
shifts.
one did stick around.
Did it?
Yeah, yeah.
Let's
He
see.
took
How much I was paying
he
attention.
took the first line apart for a shift.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And he put Zuccarello back with Kaprizov and Eck.
Yes.
And then he went right back to Boldy. But no, the Rossi thing, he started the game with that.
But maybe it's to balance the scoring too.
Well, that's
we
what
go
I'm
back
wondering.
to
Is there a
that,
good
right?
explanation?
Yeah.
I'm
it could be
open to
that.
hearing explanations, but I was like, what? This seems very odd to me.
Yeah. Dex, you gotta. What would Mr. Put Your Heinz cap on? What are you saying?
Yeah. Put your Mr. Positivity cap on and disagree with me when I ask questions.
I would definitely move him up. I wouldn't be putting him in a spot to be playing demoted minutes, especially
That's
too
what it
if you're going to have a top heavy line, which you do, you need kind of to get as much offense as you can. So why would you be putting a guy like Marco Rossi, who's had a great season, honestly, and really an under the radar season? Why would you be putting him in a spot where he shouldn't be successful? I think that's frustrating, and it should definitely be brought up a lot more because they can't really afford for him to be a bottom six dude.
Yeah, it was weird. And like, I just don't think that Hartman is playing well enough to justify a promotion. And then he also, here's the other thing, last night again, he took a Hartman penalty. And those kill you. And like, if John Hines was being truthful about this, that's got to piss you off to no end. And the thing with Hartman that just really gets me is, dude, you're a marked man. Like, the Stripes are looking at you. First of all, in that game, they are for sure because of the Perfetti thing. But he's a marked guy. Yeah. Like, if he reaches with his stick, he's going to get called for a penalty because he's known for that. So, like, I was trying to go through and I do actually give Hines credit for this. I do like the fact he juggles lines at times. Mm-hmm. Like, he does things I really like. But that was one where I was like, why would you, as Dex said so appropriately, why would you put a guy like Rossi in a position to play less, which I believe he did?
Yeah.
So that was just weird.
Fair. We need more Judd in post-game pressers, I think.
Well, I was
just spouting negativity. A 10-7 game man comes out here. So what was really bad in there?
I got annoyed because everybody and the Bally's guys were like smirking like Cheshire cats. I got annoyed because everyone was taking a victory lap. And look, it's a nice win, but if you're a coach, you should not be happy with that game. Like yes, it's a comeback. Yes, that's nice. But first of all, for 2 periods, your goaltender sucked. And second of all, you gave up 7 goals, and you had to score. And you scored 10 goals. Now, if this was the Oilers in 84, God bless you. But it ain't the Oilers in 84. So there was a lot. There's no way that if you're John Hines, when he watched that film, that he was like, yeah, this is great. Maybe we could score 10 goals more, especially as we've talked about with one line doing it. That's the other thing. Your secondary scoring, you need more. And then the Rossi thing. So here's what drives me crazy. Okay. I looked it up this morning just because I was like, I'm being very tough on Gaudreau and, more importantly, Marcus Johansson. Am I wrong, Judd? Like, am I lashing out, Judd? Marcus Johansson, last 20 games, okay, has 4 goals, 5 points, and is a -14.
Cool.
Since scoring 2 goals versus Washington on January 23rd, which, by the way, former team. I think he's played for the Capitals twice now, okay? Motivated Marcus Johansson, 2 goals, great game. He has now 1 assist in 5 games and is a -5.
Now do Freddie, because it's way worse. It is way worse for Fred.
Yeah, but I mean, Marcus Johansson's on your second line is supposed to be doing something, and Freddie is worse. But my point is, like, what are we doing here? Why does Marcus Johansson get a pass to be on that second line every game? And to your credit, Jessie, when you asked Hines about it, a week ago now, he sort of deflected it off. But I don't understand what is the hierarchy here of why you get a pass or why you don't.
It is. It's very curious because you're right. I did specifically call him out because John Hines did acknowledge, hey, there are some forwards that maybe are put on warning and alert. And it didn't seem as dramatic as maybe social media had it come across. But that was when Mason Shaw returned. And I said, well, how do you assess Marcus Johansson's game and what he has done or what he, continues to attempt to do? Because it lacks something. There's a desire there. I think that's why we're so hard on Marcus Johansson, is because that there is a skill there. If for whatever reason
Correct.
he turns on and turns off, right? Like Freddie Gaudreau, I think, has to work a little bit harder to reach that skill level where JoJo doesn't have to. But Hines responded to me saying, no, I think he's been an effective player. And it didn't even feel like he was faking it. Like it felt like John Hines truly believed that Marcus Johansson is doing what is expected of him and what is there. And I'm like, but that's nothing. Like, why is he on that second line then? I mean, I'd rather see Mason Shaw maybe come in and get a shot to put that up there, because at least he's going to work hard every single shift. And I think that's what's frustrating, is watching Johansson get these top 6 forward minutes without putting the effort in on every shift, right? And it's puzzling. It's very, very puzzling. It's very frustrating. It makes you wonder, looking down the line, if they are to sign any of these KHL prospects or any of these other guys as soon as they're able to, what that means for them. Because I don't want to see a Lettieri or a Lucchini or a Dewar necessarily come out. I'd rather see Freddie and JoJo up in the press box.
Yep.
I mean, in the last 5 years, so he got traded, from Washington, or actually it was the Devils to the Bruins, Johansson did, at the trade deadline in 2019. So in 5 years, he has played for 6 teams. And he continues to get just run after run after run. And outside of last year, where he had a decent year, he scored 19 goals, and he was really instrumental in that cup run for the Capitals when they won in 2017, I believe it was. But outside of that, he is getting 16 to 17 minutes a night for a guy who has scored double-digit goals once in that span. I don't. And I liked what he did when he was acquired here last year at the deadline. That was a better result than his first stint here in 2020-21. But at some point, you just got to pull the plug and say, all right, this guy is no longer the guy he was when he was with the Capitals. It's time to give other guys some minutes.
And this is the exact guy that he was the first time here. And we said, in retrospect, he was hurt. Because then when he came back here, but I mean, Bill Garrett and us, we all got rope-a-doped. Because Declan's right. He gets traded here, contract year. I think he played damn well. But nobody likes to glide more. And yes, you're right, Jess. You know what? Gaudreau's not good to a certain, like he's not a very productive player. But one, he's not that talented. And two, it's not his fault. He got a contract extension. Mm-hmm. Marcus Johansson, to me, he got a contract extension based on the falsifying of his willingness to work. I never watch Gaudreau and think, well, he's just sort of lazy. I do think, okay, he's not as good as Dean thought, and he's probably not being used the same. I'm sure there's some systems there. But Johansson is, he literally, in my opinion, stealing, because nobody likes to glide around the ice more. You could tell, you're right. He's a hell of a skater.
Yeah.
Last night, I don't think I've ever seen a guy show up more. Like, I saw him a ton last night to the point of where it felt like he got a talking to, but he doesn't get on the score sheet. And how many pucks did he put wide last night? So I guess my frustration with him is more so based on, just feels like there is some really, unfortunately for all Bill Guerin has tried to clean up the locker room. Like, we're lapsing back into some of those old school wild guys. I'll sort of do what I want. 7 goals in the third period, right? Well, can you come out against the Jets then? Well, we played well. We just gave up some bad goals. Okay, but you still lost. The Wild is 5-9 against the division. They are 0-7 against the top 3 teams. The Jets, 3-0 against them. The Stars, 3-0 against them. The Avs have beaten them once. We could talk all we want about, could this be a playoff team? And I know that the league gives out points like candy, so teams are fighting for that spot. But I'm sorry. Like, there's too many passengers too often. And I'm not saying the fourth line, but that second line has some. And you cannot ask the first line every game to just dominate completely, because it's not going to be possible against good teams.
No, and that's the problem. that's the NHL in general. You have a handful of teams that are really, really good. And if you're not in that handful of teams, then it doesn't matter. You could be very middle of the pack, and that's not going to get you anywhere, right? You have almost a better shot sometimes of being a terrible team and getting the upset because nobody has these expectations of you, right? So it's just like the NHL is not kind to very middling teams, and that would be the Minnesota Wild, right? I joked this week on our Bar Down Beauties episode that they're back. Well, they're just back to middle ground, right? Like they're just not below the middle ground is all I meant. And that's true. I think that's okay. I don't. It's not detrimental to miss the playoffs because I'm so sick of the narrative of, hey, we made the playoffs. I don't give a bleep about making the playoffs anymore, right? I want the expectation to be set far higher. Put that pressure on yourself. Make it known that you're not in it just to make the playoffs for a first round appearance. It's just not worth it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and look, maybe they like luck out with the playoff bracket that they get to play the Pacific Division team, and like that'd be better than playing a Central Division team. But at the same time, now you're just like creating your own little path of, well, if they just sneak in, right? If they just sneak in and they get the draw that they want, which also Wild fans have done a ton. They did that with the Vegas Golden Knights a few years ago. We're like, oh, we kicked Vegas Golden Knights' ass all season long, and then you lost a 7-game series. So it's a completely different beast come playoff time. And I think Judd's right, where if they can't even beat up on the division teams, which they should be, and by the way, a hard division, I shouldn't say it's easy to win in the Central because it's not. Right. But if they haven't shown that they can compete and keep up with the good teams in the Central Division, it doesn't really give you a lot of hope, regardless if you make the playoffs or not.
Yeah, and if you play the Canucks, guess what? You're going to get a steady diet of Thatcher Demko.
Yeah, right. That's exactly it. Like, you beat their backup goalie. Because they wanted to save Thatcher for Colorado. It's funny, in talking in the Vancouver press room after their game, because obviously I go to both rooms, and they didn't really care that they lost to Minnesota because they were more focused on playing Colorado the next night. They knew they had Colorado, like it just, that's the mentality. That's how good teams are sometimes, right? Like they're not going to get hung up on losing it. And likewise, Minnesota shouldn't gotten on a high for beating them either. It's just, that's
the thing is that felt like way too much of a defining game, which would be fine if you came out and kicked their ass, as Declan said, right from start to finish. Mm-hmm. Like if you come out and you dominate the Canucks on Monday in front of your home crowd, it's like, okay, that was pretty impressive. But you were in huge trouble. You came scurrying back, and then I heard it on the telecast last night, which was, well, I mean, it's tough to come back from that game on Monday. You were on such a high. This is a playoff race. This isn't Pee-wee hockey. Yeah. Don't have to come back like that. Don't have to score 7 goals. So.
And again, mind you, you were on the 2-man advantage for the majority of that time. So I want to put that into an essence too. Like, it's not like you did this 5-on-5. You did this when you were up. You should be scoring on those opportunities. There's no question about that. That's just,
And the Canucks played a dumb game too. So, but beyond that, it was great. All right, we're done here. But before we're done, I want to talk to you, and Jessie does too, about our friends at Livea Weight Control Centers. Because Jessie, we have both used this program. It's been outstanding. It's been great. What is your loss at right now from a weight standpoint, and how are things going for you?
I'm almost 40 pounds down. Very excited, getting closer and closer to my goal weight. Couple extra stubborn pounds that I want to lose to look and feel my best, but I have absolutely loved the support that I get from Livea each and every week. I go to the Woodbury Clinic. They're always encouraging me even when I have those bad weeks, because losing weight, dieting kind of sucks. It's kind of hard, but Livea holds you accountable and makes you want to continue to do it, and it's a lifestyle change. So I'm excited for when I do finally reach my goal. I know I can maintain and sustain that lifestyle that I've created, just like you've done, Judd.
Absolutely right, Jessie. 855-GO-LIVEA, Livea.com, Livea.com. Join all the cool kids and start losing weight now. We'll see you later.